Welcome, everyone, to the next edition of Unscripted and Unstoppable. I am your host, Lorene Quick, and I am so glad that you are here. This month, we are focusing on the concept, the idea of integration, and what happens to us once something has shifted, but before everything fully makes sense. It's the space where the body is catching up, where you may feel different, even if you can't explain why. This week, we are going to explore how that shows up in one of the most charged areas of our life, money. Because for many women, money is not just a practical thing, it's deeply tied to our identity, our responsibilities, and even our self-worth. And often, without realizing it, we've learned to override ourselves when we think about money, to give, to sacrifice, and to try to hold everything together. Today, I am joined by Jeannie Dougherty, often called a money whisperer. Jeannie works with entrepreneurs and couples to help them understand the deeper patterns that shape their relationship with money and also help them begin to shift with more clarity and awareness their relationship to and how they think about money. Together, we will explore what we are calling the martyr pattern. The way we will also take a look at the way we care and take responsibility for ourselves and others through our money, and how, as our relationship evolves, we can learn to be more connected to ourselves and live our lives more fully.
Mhm.
We will explore another option in our relationship to money, and that is not reacting, not forcing, not striving and struggling, but rather relaxing into that relationship in a way that serves us. As you listen, you might simply notice a questioning going on in your mind about your relationship with money. I would encourage you to just pay attention to how that feels in your body, and to ask yourself a very important question. Where have I been overriding myself without realizing it as I think about and work with and experience money? With that, let's begin. Jeannie, I'm just going to jump right into the first question
Yes.
and ask, your work focuses on emotional and behavioral money patterns rather than just financial strategy. What has led you to that approach, and why is this especially important to midlife?
So my journey is so different than the average person who is a New York Stock Exchange trader, somebody who got a finance degree, worked on Wall Street, has all the SEC licenses. I'm none of that. I'm not an accountant or a bookkeeper. I'm a human being that actually watched a family member have great financial exploitation happen to them, to the point by the time we went to court, there was nothing we could do because their entire estate that was supposed to be taking care of them, because they had Alzheimer's, I'm referring to my mother, was gone. There was nothing we could do. It was completely gone. This person stole it years earlier and then pretended like they were taking care of her. And it was a huge shift. So when I love how you said, it's not all about financial strategy. When I would ask accountants and bookkeepers and, financial advisors and planners, wealth managers, I don't think I missed anybody. That's kind of pretty much what the financial industry does. Unless you're like a financial analyst working for like, Chase Bank or something like way, way down the road, something like that. And long story short, none of them really knew. Like they're like, we know there's red flags, but they don't really have any ability to stop it, and they often ignore it. And since we can actually do a lot of our banking now behind a screen, there's more likely that theft will occur. So it's not even like who did you put in your will in the state, like, that type of planning. It's like who's actually managing the money. And there's daily money managers, but they usually manage people who have millions of dollars, not just necessarily like, maybe somebody who's making six figures or less in a year. So, what I learned very quickly was that the feelings that I felt, along with my sisters, and how hard we fought for certain things, didn't go away when we lost. If anything, my attorney told me, she's like, "Listen, you're just gonna have to start your life over. There's nothing else we can do. We've litigated, we've lost, move forward." And that's easy to say, like just go in another direction, but it doesn't answer those important questions like how do I handle my rage? How do I forgive something that's pretty unforgivable? How do I plan my life? How am I ever going to trust again? Like answer those questions. And you know what? Nobody has the answer really except you.
Hmm. So you had quite an experience that caused you then to realize the power of how we think about money.
Yeah. And
Really.
like it was, like what are all the dynamics that people like what are the games that people play inside families, which then also shows
Mhm.
up in corporations and in governments around the world. It's not just ours. That they play these games because they think they're going to win. And then when other people are losing or dying in some cases, what do we do? What are we here for? What is the plan? Do we have a safety net? Do we have a guardrail? Do we have money to fight back? What do we have? And these are bigger questions. And most of the time, as women, we are not in, we may like have the purse strings for the daily budget, like we can get groceries and pay off credit cards, things of that nature. But we're the nurturers. And we're the ones who are expected to stop work and take care of the family, even if you're the one who gets paid more.
And so you trust other members of the family, spouses, but not even just a spouse, any member of the family to do the right thing for you, by you, as you navigate these situations, and they don't always do that.
Yeah. There's many situations that I speak to women who are midlife, early midlife, like they just turned 39, technically 35 to 55 is midlife. I know if we're keeping up with the statistics, but and then suddenly their mother gets sick, and then they literally have to either leave the country, depending on where their mother could be, and
Mhm.
take off work to go take care of their mother to make sure that she's fed, she's showered, she's bathed, she can take medication, she can go to the doctor, she'll be there for the procedure. And then come home. And I want to just say that it's not that men or sons or brothers or husbands don't do any work. They do, but it is often becomes a female self-sacrificing position that women end up in, and we carry that pain, that rage, that deep disappointment inside of us, and a lot of times we don't know what else to do.
And in the meantime, our financial life gets shelved,
Yes.
and we are trusting others will take care of us if needed, or that we can just jump back in when it's over. But we all know caregiving can last, I think, up to 15 years
Yeah.
sometimes for how
Yes.
long you have to spend your time and energy in a relationship that you're there and want to be there to serve. But in the meantime, you're not making financial gains. You are losing
Right.
actually financial gains and trusting others to help you through that.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Exactly. And what we know on average, what caregivers, midlife caregivers who have a career, who are having to take care of a family member, doesn't matter if it's a longstanding issue with a child who might have some health issues or is on the spectrum, or if it's having to take care of an aging loved one, it's usually about $7,400 out of pocket. That's paying for a kid. And we know it's going to go up this year because insurance has shifted. There's more inflation. There's less resources. So it might go up to 10,000. Can you imagine how much that's going to cost you over, 10 years plus interest
Hmm.
if it's on
Yeah.
credit?
So in addition to your financial life being shelved, you also are now absorbing a huge financial loss or
Yes.
cost
Yes.
as you are going through that process. And even for the woman who is not in a caregiver situation, we are still at a place where many of us are trusting others to take care of our money.
Yes.
and that we believe, right will be done, good will be done, and then we sometimes find out that's not happened.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked earlier when we were first meeting up about this idea of this martyr pattern that shows up and shapes the way women think about money, our self-worth, and our even our personal permission. How does all of that work? How does that happen for us? Can you share more?
Yeah, so a lot of times in families, there's one or two people that might be the actual nurturer of the family. So that means, you go to them if you need emotional comfort, you go to them for food, you go to them, maybe for some wisdom. Like I've seen it in very large families that sometimes it doesn't have to be the oldest daughter, but maybe one of the daughters will literally take care of the younger siblings and say, "Oh, this is my baby," because they're just wired and they get rewarded for that. So how does it show up in life and show up in money? Well, you may marry or partner with somebody who needs a nurturer, but they're not going to necessarily nurture you back. And then what comes to the money piece is that even if you're very good at your job and you're not even like want a ton of responsibility, you just need a paycheck so you can just kind of, handle the bills and move on with your day. And your husband's going to take care of you or your partner or somebody's going to take care of you that may or may not happen. My experience is men are just as confused about money and don't make really good decisions long term, even though it's sort of the expectation they should. So what happens is that women will not speak up. They will, or if they do, they're not heard because, what do they know? They don't know enough about money or they haven't been taught. Some of the clients I've worked with have told me that, this is a little bit more of a generational thing, but their own mothers will not consult their adult daughters. They will only talk to their son-in-laws about money.
Wow.
Yeah. How disempowering is that? And yet the daughter's expected to do the work. She's expected to take care of mom. She's expected to listen to mom. She's expected to deal with whatever stuff is going on. But as soon as it's money, she needs to talk to the son-in-law. And then the son-in-law has to talk to his wife and saying, well, here's what your mother wants to do. And then she's like, well, don't do that. We know she doesn't have money for that. And he's like, okay, I tried to tell her that, but she's not listening.
Yeah.
We're like, okay. So it just goes around and around in this sort of vortex of dysfunction. Oh, I think I can do this. Nope.
And I think it's also interesting that we rarely will talk about it. We don't
Mhm.
really talk about money in our families. We just assume it's all kind of under the surface and that it's just moving along, taking care of everyone. And if there are bumps and hiccups, we don't really go into that until we're in a crisis. And then
Right.
when everything explodes, everyone is shocked and surprised, and we wonder, how did this happen?
Right. Well, in some families, to talk about money, it's sinful, like outright sinful, because you're bragging, you're talking about your money. In other, times, it's about, well, if you're doing that, it's always to compare, like, well, we got a swimming pool this year. The other person's like, but I joined the country club. I could just go on and on and on about how this comparison then pushes us into, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to invest more money and time with my children, which may be a worthy investment depending on what it is. So, like you might send them to extra day camps or summer camps, not to keep them busy, but to actually enrich their lives. Like space camp, for instance, you might be like, we're sending our son to space camp because he's got an interest in it, wants to go. And these are all money values at play. But somebody would say, well, when you sell your house, the swimming pool is the best answer because you'll get like an ROI. There is a return on investment. That's true.
Mhm.
Country club, though, may make the connections if you use them right. If you're in business or you need to get ahead in life, that could work. But then again, investing in your children is one of those things. It may be one of the best things you've ever done. Your child will become an astronaut and have a dream career that majority of people can't do. Yeah,
Perhaps, perhaps, but the reality is, though, we need to consider and weigh what the cost of those choices and decisions are relative to what we're giving up in order for that to happen.
exactly.
Right. So, I mean, what I often think about, well, I can do this for my grandson, but then that means I won't put that money in his fund
Yeah,
for when he's 18 because, so which would he really rather me have? Would he really rather have this experience with me, or would he really rather me keep putting that money away so that when he turns old enough to go to college, he has some resources available to him? So there are trade-offs. And again, if we're not talking about money, we don't talk about the trade-offs.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so here's something that I just want to tell you that this is a classic money brain conundrum. It's always either or instead of like the real answer is can you do both? Can you do maybe an experience that maybe won't be as much money or costly
Mhm.
and then still put some money away, maybe not as much, but still put some money away into that college fund if you value both. And I say if you value both.
Which requires very intentional thoughts,
Hmm.
and considerations, and sometimes conversations, with children or adult children, parents, whatever, whoever is involved. But of course, if we're not talking about money, then we really don't talk about those things.
No, nope, we don't.
And so I'm going to jump back to this idea of martyrdom. I mean, as a woman, we grow up serving others. That
Yes.
is a primary focus in our lives. And that costs us, and we don't really fully understand the full cost of that. And so, as let's say I'm someone that I'm 67, I've served, I've supported, I've loved, and I have spent my energy and time focusing on others. Now my husband has passed away, and
Mhm.
my children are all grown up, and here I am managing for myself. But if I've let others manage that for me all along, because of course I was never really considering it, I was thinking about how I serve and how I care and how I love and support. Where am I? What's happened to me? I'm waking up to a reality that I'm not prepared for.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always remind all my clients is that you can rebuild at any time in your life. It's just a
Mhm.
question of the choices that you want to make. So if you wake up and you realize you're 67 and you may not have enough to make it to 87, but yet your life expectancy is going to go in that direction, you
Mhm.
have some choices. And this is when financial strategy is very good. But then I also encourage rewiring your money brain, which is what I do, because you're not going to see an opportunity. You're not going to take a chance to invest in the things that you need. So for some people, they're like, oh, I'm just going to die at my house. That's the plan. And it's like, okay, that's great. Assuming you've got the funds to do the remodeling. So it's more than just putting bars in the bathroom and it's more than just putting a ramp, instead of the stairs. It's a lot of work. It could be a $20,000 remodel. And if you're like, oh, I don't want to spend that kind of money, would it make more sense to buy a condo or a tiny home or something, in a comfortable place, or just go get like an apartment, in a senior place? Is that like where you really want to go? Because then you always have somebody around you, like what is it that you're looking for? And I feel like sometimes people have not been taught because like you just said, I've spent all my time and energy serving others. How do I serve myself? How do I want to pass away and leave this earth in a way that I feel good about my choices? I'm comfortable. I still have opportunities to do things. And I believe I'm a money maker, even in retirement, because that's one of the biggest blocks in retirement is like, now I'm going to have to spend money. Either you're spending like crazy and you go through it like, water, and then you end up in a big problem, which is you spent like, three-quarters of your retirement. Oh no. And then, or it's like I'm constantly saving and I just take the bare minimum out of my withdrawals and panic the whole time I have to pay taxes on it. It's like, well, yeah.
So when you say, of course, there are strategies, but we're going to focus on the mental and the psychological. So what's the first thing that I should be shifting in my thought process around money as
So
a
the
as
first
someone
thing
new?
I would encourage for you to think about is that money is moving all the time and around this planet, and there is an opportunity for you. An opportunity for you to make more money. And again, I'm not telling you to invest. I didn't say put it all in crypto, Lorraine, that's fine.
Mhm.
I didn't say sell your home. No, I just said imagine that there's opportunities because I've met people who are in their 60s and 70s who start businesses and they're profitable. They're not like maybe like making like eight figures. Of course not. But they're making really good money. It pays for all their current expenses. It keeps them busy. They love what they're doing and they just enjoy it. Like they don't feel alone anymore. They're looking forward to what the next decade's going to provide. And that is a big shift of like, wait, there's an opportunity here for me instead of, well, we've already made all the money. That's it. We're done. Well, you might as well die then, at that point. Because if that's all you've got, then you're just waiting until an expiration date, which I don't know when it's coming either.
No. And why would you want to live like that anyway, in my opinion? Yeah,
Yes, yes.
right. So begin to realize that just because I've retired doesn't mean my money earning years have gone bye-bye.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the first step. Mhm.
Okay. And then beyond that, what do I do?
So beyond that, what I would do is I would encourage you to like make a list of everyone you know. So this is one of the biggest like secrets to money making, yet every wealthy person does this. And people who aren't as wealthy but still have good money, we call it OPM in my line of work, and it's other people's money. Other people's money because that's how you can sometimes make money. So again, if it's a service or if it's a business or a product, there could be some opportunities. It may be that y'all get together and play the lottery. I don't recommend that, but you could. It may, because there's been like tons of like elderly women who have played the lottery together in a group and they just put their little $5 in every week and then they make like $20 million and they're like, oh, what should we do next?
I
Even if
love
you're like
that.
20 million spent, like 15 ways, I'm like, yeah, but there's your money to pay for whatever
Yeah.
it is that you need.
Or
So,
you could
yeah,
also form an investment group, a club,
yes,
where you talk about how ways that you are making money. What you're creating with any of that really is a focus on money in your life,
there you go.
where you have a place to talk about it, think about it, share with others, collaborate potentially, but
Mhm.
it becomes a focal point in your life versus something that's really easy to ignore because you've shoved the checkbook in a drawer somewhere and you're not looking until it's tax time at whatever you've done for the last 12 months. Yeah.
Exactly. And like one of the big things that nonprofits are looking for savvy seniors who will
Mhm.
have legacy money that they're willing to give them. That's always an opportunity for you, but you don't have to just put it all in, whether you have children or not, or they're living, grown, whatever. You don't have to give it all away to a nonprofit. And because if you don't want the state to take it, because trust me, the state will take it. Any country will take it. If you have anything left and it's not been appropriately put in the right places to family members, they will be taking it. So it's sort of like, well, what would you like to do with your money? And then all of a sudden there could be this spark and this sort of like, well, if I could take some of my money and I could get it to do this, I think I'd be really interested. And again, I'm not talking about investing. I'm talking
Mhm.
about like, and I mean like stock market investing. I'm talking about like, oh, maybe there's some good money here that we could work on, or maybe I could become an angel investor with somebody else and put it towards a product. So one of my favorite things that this is a story that is true, and this happened during the pandemic. So I think everyone knows what Moderna is, but
Mhm.
Moderna was one of the COVID shots. And Dolly Parton gave $1 million to Moderna prior, I think it was like right before the pandemic hit, or maybe in the early stages of them, so they could finish the drug. And then, of course, she made millions of dollars upon that. But, my point is that, she was looking for an opportunity. And, who would have thought that Dolly Parton would have, done some bio investing, in a medication or a vaccine company. But she was looking around and said, maybe I should. So I just leave it to people to say, like, if you've got some money, you could become an investor and then get paid back. That's the whole point of angel investing. It's not just, I gave you a gift and take care of it.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
three little things right there. First off, what did we say? I've already forgotten. Have a focus in your life about money
Yes.
and potentially even share that with others so that you have a community that has this focus. Think about what do I want to do with my money, and don't just assume you're going to live forever. As we get closer, every day we get closer to death, unfortunately, but it's true. So
Hmm.
have some thought and then make a plan on how you want to leave this world and what you want to happen with the resources that you have available to you at this time when you pass. And then there was one other. What was it was the very first one we talked about. I should have written it down.
That's okay.
Think about your relationship. Just start thinking about money and that the fact that it moves. Money
Yes.
moves. So money
Money
moves.
moves.
Yeah,
Yes.
money moves. Make it a focal point in your life of conversation and collaboration, and then get serious about what would you want to do with your money as you pass, as you leave this world. Our
Yes.
three big thoughts. that you want to spend some time working on as we get older. Okay, good. So, one of the things I talk a lot about are thresholds in the work that I do with
Mm.
women. And these are moments when life asks us to pause rather than react. How do you see that um, when it comes to money? Are we more reactive and we
Oh,
need to pause more, or
we're
what's your
definitely
advice?
more reactive for sure.
Mhm.
So, this is like, again, the magical question. Do you actually get visibly, like people can see what you're thinking and feeling, upset or speak up, or do you just suck it inside? Somebody who's a real martyr is going to suck it inside, and that's going to be a detriment for them. But for those who start to speak up or, maybe aren't saying it the right way, whatever that looks like, because again, there's lots of opinions from the committee of people who like to join in, like, well, why didn't you just say that? Whatever. Not
Of course.
everyone's talking about money all day long. You know what I mean? So, what I have discovered is that you have to be willing to feel your feelings or be aware that you have a feeling. If you do not like the feeling, or you do not like the situation, like, oh my God, I think somebody just stole from me, in an account, and I'm going to have to go through this whole process. You have every right to be absolutely angry and irate and whatever else you're feeling, disappointed, etc. Here's where I come in because these are skills that I desperately needed because my rage was so bad at that point in my life, finding out the because we went to litigation, took about 2 years. So it was just like ongoing, oh, this was another lie. This was taken. This heirloom is gone. Like it was awful. So, like, I needed real time skills of like how to deal with the things that were setting me to a place of like, I am seeing red again and I hate being in this spot. And then my body would react. So I would get really sick. I had horrible headaches. So I definitely live for real time skills about how to breathe and center yourself and then take an action course because trying to tell people to forget it, then we spend our whole lives learning to shut off. And then we're trying to figure out like it was at age 5 that you just stopped talking about your feelings and then you just did whatever you had to do to survive. And then people are going, yeah, well, then that's trauma. And then we got to like rewire a bunch of trauma, which we
Yeah.
can do. But it's sort of like, well, what if you had something to support you so you're not alone seething by yourself? Because when you go to other people like friends and sometimes other family members, they're not any more help than anyone else. They're not trained in money and they're going to be like, well, I don't know, maybe you should pray. That's not a bad suggestion, by the way, but that's not, maybe the answer that's going to work for you.
You know, I think we all have triggers when it comes to money.
Mm.
And to go to another family member, you're just triggering them potentially, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Having someone who is outside of your life, who can see things more clearly and objectively to guide you through this process of understanding what your triggers are when it comes to money. And those triggers create pattern behavior.
Yes.
So when, for example, I worked with a woman who was trying to um, basically clean up her house. She wanted to get rid of all this junk. And she didn't want, and the main focus was she didn't want her children to have to do that for her when she passed.
Well, that
But
was
she,
noble. That was a
yeah,
noble
yeah,
effort.
it really was. But then she would get mired down in all of the memories of the things she was trying to get rid of, or then she would get mired down in just the overwhelm of so much clutter.
Hmm.
And only when she began working with me and we processed what does this look like for you in terms of what are you trying to create? Focus on what you're creating. Don't focus on what you're losing. Honor and grieve what you're losing, what you're letting go, but then the main focus needs to be on what you are gaining, what you are moving
Exactly.
towards. And she could not have done that by herself.
Yeah.
So having an external objective person does really make a huge difference in this
We
process.
all could use a money coach sometime during our life, as I remind people, like, and multimillionaires and billionaires have money coaches. They have to. Because as much as they know about something, they don't know everything. They've got to bounce it off somebody else who can be like, yeah.
And do you find in your work that women often become spenders as a way to avoid their relationship with money?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, anytime you can fill a void with, some quote unquote self-care like spa items or a vacation. There's a lot of people I think who really want coaching at, whether it's transformational coaching, money coaching, life coaching. I could go on and on about all the labels. And it's easier to take a vacation because they know if they face what's underneath, they're going to actually have to make some real changes, which might be a divorce. It might be that they're gonna have to take a good look at their money and realize that their adult children are taking from them. They're gonna have to, suddenly go like, "Oh my God, I haven't been paying attention to this money, and I thought I was gonna be able to do this, this, and that. And now I can't." But if I avoid a consequence, then my life is easier. And comfort is one of the greatest illusions and self-sabotaging things we do to ourselves. I
Um,
just want to be comfortable. And it's like, well, comfort can look different as we age, but if comfort is just you sitting in the chair because you're comfortable, then what happens? Your physical health goes down. And then you're going to need like, help getting like getting in and out of a chair. And it just like I don't think people realize like if you get to be so comfortable, nothing is going to force you to change. Like, I don't know about you, but I've had this happen in my life. You go to see a family member and you walk in and the house is like boiling at 85 degrees. This person basically sits in one part of the room and it kind of has a weird smell. And it's not like they don't bathe, it's just that they're stagnant. There's just stagnant energy everywhere. I would not want that for anybody. I wouldn't want them to be running a heater at 85, sitting watching TV all day long, and this is it. And worse, they're drinking. So, then alcohol becomes their friend at home, and then they don't even want to leave the house. And it's like, oh no, 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 that's not living.
no, that's someone made the comment once to me, that's waiting for Jesus,
That's a nice way of putting it. You're waiting
right?
for Jesus.
Or waiting to die, basically. And that would not be what a vibrant woman would be doing.
No, no,
And taking control of your belief systems about money and then taking action based on what you want then becomes a life.
exactly.
It does. And it is painful. And I agree with you. I think many women would say, oh, I'd much rather go to Hawaii and sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais and have a wonderful time with my family than realize that that trip is costing me a fortune. And at the
Yes,
same time, I don't have the finances to do that. So I'm going to go into debt for it, or I'm going to pull from what I will be needing in another 10 years when I'm living my life.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's in some ways to me it feels like it's growing up, right? It's beginning to take responsibility for ourselves.
Well, it's the difference between somebody in my world, like from a money coaching, there's a difference between a money maker who's willing to look at something that goes, I don't really know what to do with this, and I'm going to find a way, versus somebody who's like, I will not be dealing with this.
Yes.
I will avoid this. And then they become like sheep and they just follow whatever the latest in trend or thing you should do or agree with the person who's sitting right in front of them, but they have no personal opinion. They're just a sheep.
It fits a lot with the work I do around we shed a lot of our stuff and then we begin to reclaim our lives.
Yes,
And so we shed all these old beliefs about money that don't work for us, never worked for us, but we weren't paying attention. And now it's time to embrace some new ones. But more than that, not just have new belief systems, start taking action to move into the life we were meant to live, the life we want
exactly.
for ourselves.
Exactly.
Amazing. So, how do women begin to slow down and start to face their current financial reality without feeling ashamed, without moving into avoidance or going into overwhelm? What can they do?
Well, I find the women who want money coaching are the ones who are like, I have this idea and I'd like to see it come to fruition. And
Mhm.
the idea isn't necessarily like I'm going to go start a school in Africa. I mean, that's amazing if you can do that. That's not it. It's usually like I have this idea that I would like to live in a different city. And I would like to live, I think a place closer to the beach or in the mountains. And I'm just not really sure how I could do that since I don't know anybody there. So I'm not really good maybe making friends, but I think I'd really like to try. And then it's like, whoa, let's talk about this. That's a very different place. And instead of like, I've been divorced 3 times, I should have, worked harder in my divorces to get more money. It's sort of like, well, too late now, you know. Too late now. Yeah.
So don't focus so much on, don't let yourself focus mentally, emotionally on what has happened in the past,
Right.
but get a big, beautiful dream in front
Yes.
of you that you want to walk towards. And
Yes.
every time doubt comes in, every time overwhelm, every time shame or guilt or fear comes in, move to that vision
Yes.
and
Because believe
claim
it
it.
or not, your dreams are calling you. They're not like going, I'll take anybody, Harry, Jack, Marie. No, they're calling you. And
I
if
love
you want to think of it as like they're literally extending a hand to you, going, come on, this is the way to go, then it feels a lot better, right? Like I don't know about you, but I've traveled in my day and I'm always looking for a very helpful person in like an airport, on a train, in a bus. It'll make my life a lot easier. Who's going to smile, not be like, oh, so glad you showed up, Jeannie. Like we really do want the support. We want the like, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to go. This
I
will
love
make my life easier.
I
This will be
love
more
that.
fun.
So what does conscious aligned decision making with money actually look like for us women? Paint me a
So,
picture.
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So, what it looks like in the work that I do is I help you balance the logical, the analytical, the data. What are your numbers telling you? What are the numbers? First of all, number, what are they? And then what are they telling you? And then balancing them with sort of the right side of the brain, because that's all very left, like very analytical data. But with the right side of the brain, which is how we navigate, this is how we actually become creative. This is how we become curious about a problem instead of doomed and gloom. And we learn to maybe forgive ourselves, maybe others if we need to, because I said that earlier, like nobody had a plan on how to forgive. Nobody, I figured that one out. Thank you. But, like, because I really went for an answer. And then, the most important thing is we have to know how to activate that money brain when we need to make a financial decision instead of like, maybe in 6 months.
Hmm.
Okay, maybe, or make it now. You
Yeah,
end up with more energy and time when you make the decision now.
I like it. I like it. Last question for our conversation today. For women who feel both the pull towards a bigger life, but they also fear about their financial security, what is the one first step that they could do to become more self-honest and take control of their financial life?
I would say the best first step is to realize you're going to need some financial help. And I mean it in past, like maybe a financial advisor. So we're not talking about strategy. We're talking about like, I think I need maybe more opportunity or I need more I need to be around other dreamers. I need to be around women. I'll never forget this. I had one of my clients say, "Oh, I hate taking cruises because of my age. They keep putting me next to women, and all they do is talk about orthotics." And I want to talk about the adventure we're going on because they were on a cruise, and she was excited about seeing this place. So part of it is who are you willing to spend time with? Because when you're investing in time and energy, meaning like this experience or my life is important, I can sit around and wait for Jesus, but Jesus is going to come no matter what I do. What else could you be doing? And that is if you're around people who are motivated and excited. And believe it or not, a lot of times it's people who are younger than us who might be like, I think you should take the chance. And it's up to you whether you want to take that. I didn't say go blind, but into any type of risk, thing. But when you do that, then you actually start to feel more motivated and connected because we all want to belong. We all want to be connected. We all want to be loved and we all want to be wealthy enough to do the things that we say we want to do with our money.
And they always say that thing about you become the who you become is based on the five people that you hang around with the most.
Exactly.
Right. And I say who you are is based on the five people that you hang around with the most.
Yes,
So, moving forward and selecting other women or other people in your life that focus on money, focus on living, a focus on contributing to the world and being actively a part of it makes a huge difference in how you think and feel about yourself and ultimately in how you behave.
exactly.
Yeah. Wow. This has been an amazing conversation, Jeannie. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for all of the clarity that you have brought to this very important topic that we are often very confused about. And for you, dear listeners and viewers, thank you. I do appreciate you taking the time to connect. I value you greatly. If something in this episode connected or resonated with you, you might just take a moment to notice what felt true, or even just where your body responded to the conversation. If you would like to connect with Jeannie, you will find links to her website and ways to reach out and connect with her in the show notes. And if you are in a place where something is shifting and you're not fully yet clear, I do offer a free conversation called Finding Your Inner Bearings that you can sign up for. The link is in the show notes for that as well. And then finally, if this conversation meant something to you, shifted something in you, you can always support this podcast by liking, commenting, or sharing it with others so that more women can find and be a part of these conversations. Until next time, my friends, please take care of yourself and keep listening to what is true. Thank you.